Hi, I've previously looked at the range of official model kits produced for vehicles during the Rogue Trader years of Warhammer 40,000. And today I'm going to look at some more of the vehicles that are available based on these kits here, because there were variations on all of them that had their own distinct rules that were never made as official models. Instead, you had to get these kits and convert them. The first model I'm going to take a look at is the Rapia, which began as a light-tracked vehicle mounting a variety of heavy weapons instead of the rapier itself being the weapon. And Games Workshop produced both the multi-laser and multi-melter variants that you can see here, but the rules in the army lists for Space Marines, Imperial Guard and Squats all included a third variant that was armed with a las cannon that Games Workshop never produced. So, to convert this, you would have to get a regular rapier and then simply replace the weapon with a las cannon. In this case, this is a plastic las cannon taken from the sponson of the multi-part Predator kit. I originally considered using a las cannon taken from a Tarantula, but that's actually quite a small weapon compared to this, and I wanted it to look quite hefty. I wanted it to be on the scale of the weapons used for the multi-laser and multi-melter on the official Rapier kits, so I settled on this instead. The next vehicle I'm going to look at is the Landspeeder, and there were two versions of this created again. We have the Space Marine Landspeeder with its multi-melter and melter gun, and our Imperial Army or Imperial Guard version with its heavy plasma gun and its heavy bolter. But in an article in White Dwarf, there was a third variant of the Landspeeder for which no kit was produced, and this was a support vehicle, basically a tank hunter. It moved slightly slower than these two variants did, and it was armed with two las cannons. So again, as with the Rapier, I have simply swapped the weapons over. This time I have taken one las cannon from an Imperial heavy weapon model. It could have been a Space Marine, Imperial Army or a Squat. And then the second las cannon, which is mounted under here, I've had to remove the melter gun to mount this. This one actually comes from a Chaos Space Marine heavy weapons gunner. While the Rapier and Landspeeder conversions will be left largely up to the player, the release of the handful of multi-part plastic kits available during Rogue Trader offered far more opportunities for conversion, and Games Workshop took advantage of this to produce a series of articles in White Dwarf called Modelling Workshop that showed how these could be converted into a number of different variant vehicles. The first of these alternative versions based on a multi-part plastic kit was the Space Marine Whirlwind missile launching tank that was based on the Rhino, and this simply used a spare front plate under here to angle the turret on, and the turret is made from a couple of pieces of plastic card with a 40mm square figure base used to form the rocket launching system front and rear sections, and then the stowage boxes were simply moved from the side of the hull to the side of the turret instead. Following the conversion of the Rhino into the Whirlwind, Games Workshop produced plans for how to convert the Rhino again, this time into the Vindicator siege tank. Now, it doesn't have all the much heavier armour that we're used to today in the Vindicator when compared to a Rhino. Instead, all there was instructions on how to use a couple of pieces of plastic pipe to construct the Vindicator cannon itself, which could then be mounted into a slightly modified front section here that had new vision plates either side, slightly reinforced armour around the cannon, and then some smaller details on top. But other than that, the Rhino remained unchanged. The next conversion offered by Games Workshop was far more complicated because it used not one but two kits, taking parts from both the Land Raider and the Rhino to produce the Spartan assault carrier. And this consists of the side sections of the Land Raider, including its tracks and its las cannons, and these are mated to the hull of a Rhino, and then there are also quite a few complicated plasticard parts used to complete this vehicle, making it a far more serious modelling task than the more basic Whirlwind and Vindicators that were based off the Rhino alone. After showing you how to use half the parts from your Land Raider and half the parts from your Rhino to produce the Spartan, Games Workshop very kindly showed you how to use up the remaining Rhino and Land Raider parts to produce the Saber Tank Hunter, which of course mates Rhino track sections with Land Raider hull sections, as well as a few plasticard pieces, and uses a plastic tube, such as a pen, or this is actually a styrene tube, to produce the autocannon that this model was armed with. The release of the multi-part plastic Orc battle wagon offered many more modelling opportunities, and Games Workshop was quick to provide details on how to build the first version of the Orc Gob Smasher in Warhammer 40,000 scale. A considerably different vehicle from the epic scale version, and in fact by the time of the final version of the vehicles for Rogue Trader, the Gob Smasher Warhammer 40,000 scale looked more like the epic scale model. In the meantime though, you had this variation which enclosed the troop transport area and put some side mounted bolter weapons, and where the driver was mounted on the original vehicle, we have a section of plastic tube used to create the main gun. Slightly more complicated, the changes to the engine, which lay the two side sections flat and then also mounts the exhaust in a horizontal position as well. Games Workshop also issued instructions on how to convert the regular battle wagon into the Blitz cannon variant, mounting a triple autocannon in a mount here at the front of the troop carrying compartment, and this required the troop carrying section to be expanded somewhat so that you would still have room for all of the troops. But other than that, there were fewer changes between this and the regular version than there were with the Gob Smasher. And significantly, this vehicle, the instructions for it were presented in the same edition of White Dwarf as the final version of the vehicle rules for Rogue Trader. So really, this became the first vehicle to be produced exclusively under the final version of the Warhammer 40,000 Rogue Trader vehicle rules. That reaches the end of the converted variants of the standard vehicles released in the Rogue Trader years by Games Workshop, but we're not quite at the end of the story of the vehicles for which there were rules under Rogue Trader, because there were also some vehicles which had to be entirely scratch built, and they will be the focus of my next video in this little series. I hope you've enjoyed watching part 2. So thanks for watching. Bye.